And a brief time ago, I spoke with Eric Farnsworth, a former State Department official who is now Vice President of the Council of the Americas. Eric Farnsworth, in the wake of Maduro's election, the US is already moving to tighten financial sanctions against Venezuela. But is that going to make any difference at all or change the situation within the country?
Well, the steps that the United States just announced are not a surprise. They previewed that even before the election. They said if the election came off the way that everybody anticipated, that there would be further steps. And it's the US and other countries as well, the Lima Group, Europe, etc. But will this have an impact? It depends on how you define impact. It will squeeze the government further, the Venezuelan government further. It will make it more difficult for them to finance their activities. Will it cause the government to fall? I think that's the key question. And under the current circumstances, I think the government still has a way to go if it wants to hang on. So that's going to be something we have to watch very carefully.
US officials have talked about the idea of imposing an oil embargo, but they also don't want to further worsen the humanitarian crisis, do they?
That's absolutely right. And I think they're very sensitive to the fact that the Venezuelan people are different from the Venezuelan government. So there are a couple things going on here. They're also sensitive to history and the perception that the United States has at times exercised a somewhat heavy hand in Latin America. They don't want to be the story. They want Caracas to be the story, where frankly it should be, and the activities of the Venezuelan government. So anything that's perceived as too heavy-handed by the United States could be perceived in some quarters as counterproductive. Still, they want to take steps to try to move Venezuela back toward the democratic path.
Meanwhile, Nicolás Maduro has been re-elected, but does he have any kind of a plan to deal with the hyperinflation and the hunger that is sweeping his country?
Yeah, he claims that he does. He says that he's going to work day and night to recover the economy and to restore economic growth, etc. But Venezuela is an oil economy, and the oil sector is in collapse. Production is declining by the month due to corruption, due to a lack of human resources, due to a lack of investment. So it's very difficult to see how he gets to that place, other than perhaps continuing the relationship with China and Russia and some of the external countries outside of the hemisphere, and that may be something he's looking to do.
If the situation continues to deteriorate, is it possible that Maduro faces perhaps a challenge from inside his inner circle?
It's very possible. It's what I think a lot of people would suggest as the most likely scenario for him to leave power at some point. Having said that, if we're talking about that now, you can be sure that he's also aware of that in the Caracas. And he and his immediate cadre of folks around him are very aware of that prospect, and they've been working against that for a long, long time. So that would be potentially difficult. But desperate people are prone to take desperate steps, and at some point, either from within his own circle or perhaps through public protests, through civil disobedience, you could paint a scenario whereby people will have simply nothing to lose and they will take those actions.
Eric Farnsworth, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.